Welcome to Coffee Break Q&A. My name is Michael Moret. Coffee Break Q&A is your opportunity to ask me Bible questions. I don't promise to have all the answers. I am not a Bible answer man, but I can tell you what I think after studying the Word of God and teaching it verse by verse for complete times. You have to learn something by default. So if you have any Bible questions for me, you can send them at the end of the broadcast. I will give you my email address. Question today from a listener who writes, Sir, I've been confronted with Hosea 13:16 as a biblical justification for abortion. I know that's not what is meant, but how would you refute and rebuke those who do that? Thank you, and God bless. So, this is what we used to call a real doozy. For anybody to come up with a biblical justification from this verse is just amazing to me. Let's read Hosea 13:16 and see what this person uses as a biblical proof text to say that abortion is okay. Here we go. Samaria, this is God speaking to his people, his wayward people, his people who are about to receive his judgment for their sin. God says this, Samaria shall become desolate. That's the northern section of Israel. For she hath rebelled against her God. And what's going to happen to Israel because she rebelled against her God? Well, they've had a lot of things happen to them already. Life is crumbling. Society is falling apart. There used to be divine protection for them. No longer the case. They rejected God, and he quit protecting them. So, this is what will happen because of their sin. They shall fall by the sword. Their infants shall be dashed in pieces, and their women with child shall be ripped up. Cruel, horribly cruel things to be done. Infants will be dashed into pieces, and pregnant women will be ripped up, and their unborn baby killed in the process. Well, God was not advocating what would happen to those babies. He was simply describing what the Assyrians would do to Israel. The Assyrians were extremely cruel and evil sinners. When they were very powerful, they were a very powerful empire. And when they conquered a nation, they would do these sorts of atrocities, the most hideous things you can imagine, including these two things to babies and unborn babies. The Assyrians were cruel and evil sinners, and God will eventually judge them for doing these things. He says that in his word. And God is describing some of their sins, not saying they're a pattern for your life or something to justify some sinful, hideous thing that you want to do. He was describing the cruel and evil sinners, the Assyrians, and some of their sins, not saying pattern your life after them. So the Assyrians also impaled the men that they captured. Or sometimes they would take the men, strip off their clothes, lay them on their backs, stretch them out with 4 stakes, tie them to the ground, in the hot sun and fillet them inch by inch, remove all their skin, and leave them laying there without skin, writhing in horrible pain in the hot sun until they died a terrible death. So does that mean that we are justified if we want to impale someone? Does that mean that we are justified if we want to skin someone alive or torture them in some other way? What a ridiculous thing to suggest that this is biblical grounds for abortion. If you have a question for me, you can send it to scriptureversebyverse@gmail.com. This has been Michael Merit for Coffee Break Q&A.